the mutant war against the children of Israel. Let's first start here. Elder Lawyer, let's get the scriptures on science. 1 Timothy 6 and 20. 1 Timothy 6 and 20.
1 Timothy 6 verse 20.
Before you get that, get Ephesians 2, 1 and 2. Ephesians 5.
Ephesians 2 and 1.
Yes, sir. Ephesians 2 and 1. Let's read it.
In you hath he quickened, who were dead in trespasses and sins.
Now, it's him who we've quickened in trespasses and sins. So a lot of what we were breaking down when it comes to the dark side, all of us in the earth at some point of time was guilty of. See? But when we come to the knowledge that we're not of this world, that we seek a better world, we tend to understand the moral line. We tend to understand that you must choose a side. So now when we receive the truth and decide to be baptized into Christ's kingdom, the Most High delivers a spirit that can help us navigate through this. A spirit that strengthens our faith through times of trouble. So it's a quickening spirit. The Most High start reminding us of his glory, his promise to us, the gift of his son. Okay? Encourages us through knowing that our forefathers went through this before and came through the Red Sea unscathed. So that's the courage that we must be reminded of. Right? So he quickeneth our spirit. Christ is feeding us spiritually. He's feeding you spiritually to endure these times. You must stay temperate, even. Right? Come on.
Verse 2. Wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world.
And we all walked according to the course of this world when what? When we knew no better, thought we were right. Read.
According to the prince of the power of the air.
The prince of the power of the air. Here is the master of this realm. Our God is the master of the universe and beyond. But this is talking about the master, the quack scientist over this earth, Satan. Read.
The spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience.
The spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. See, this is how Satan was able to get what? That's right. People to follow him from the beginning, starting with Cain, the first murderer. Okay, he initiate those who work dark and operate dark into his army against the righteous. Okay, and guess what? That's the spirit that work in what? Read that again. Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. Ephesians 2 and 2.
Yep.
Wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience.
See, and this is why through the air, the frequency, the media, they promote disobedience. This is why they promote debauchery, murder. It's all on TV.
That's a Luigi board, isn't it?
People are gonna die.
Unchastity. Because by so, your mind and your heart is now connected with the prince of darkness. And through your actions, when prophetic times like this comes into play, you have no choice in that darkness, in that confusion, but to follow his signal. Whatever he says do, you'll do, because you're under his control. First, by your behavior. So when it comes down and Satan is saying, well, do this and do that, you'll do it because you're already walking as a child of disobedience. So then that's where his science comes in, right? Ephesians 5 and 6. Read it, Elder Lawyer.
Ephesians 5 and 6.
Read.
Let no man deceive you with vain words.
With vain words.
For because of these things cometh the wrath of God upon the children of disobedience.
Because of this comes the wrath of God on the children of disobedience. The vain words, brothers and sisters, that the Most High is talking about when you break it down, when you look into these precepts, is their science. It's through the principalities of the air that they would push total destruction on God's people through their science. It's vain words. It's vain words.
Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
Are you vaccinated? If I may ask?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very pro-vaccination.
Yeah.
I believe the science is unequivocal.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants, just think of sensors planted into our brains.
Basically implanted in your skull. So, but it would be flush with your skull. So you basically take out a chunk of skull, put the Neuralink device in there. You put the electrode, you'd insert the electrode threads very carefully into the brain.
It doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you if you take a genetic editing. It's a fusion of the physical, the digital, and the biological world. That's really the essence of the fourth industrial revolution.
A merger with biological intelligence and machine intelligence.
An effort for man to merge with machine in a healthy way.
Yes.
To beat machines, you basically have to merge with machines.
Most likely, yes.
As work is changing, is a universal basic income really a solution to this problem?
I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary.
Decarbonization of the economy.
Where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on.
I mean, my top recommendation, honestly, would be just to have a carbon tax.
This global reset is necessary.
It's deceit. How do you know this? Go to 1 Timothy 6 and 20. Let's see one example of their vain words.
1 Timothy 6 verse 20.
Read.
O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust.
Commit unto thee. Commit to thee what is what?
Keep that which is committed to thy trust.
Keep that which is committed to thy trust. What was taught to him. Trust there. Not the principalities and powers of the air, the airwaves, the media. See? Stand on the word of God. Read.
Keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings.
Avoiding what?
Profane and vain babblings.
Conversations about nothing in relating to what God is saying. Gotta avoid that stuff. It means nothing. What are their vain babblings? What are their vain babblings or vain words?
But when you have a lose-lose situation, like with climate change, it's much more difficult without some overarching authority, real authority. Now, how to get there and how would it look like, I don't know. And certainly there is no obvious reason to think that it would look like Denmark or that it would be a democracy. Most likely it wouldn't. We don't have workable democratic models for a global government. So maybe it would look more like ancient China than like modern Denmark. But still, given the dangers that we are facing, I think the imperative of having some kind of real ability to force through difficult decisions on the global level is more important than almost anything else.
This is a mind right here that thinks pretty much like no one else on the planet, I would hasten to say. I'm serious. What are humans for?
As far as we know, for nothing. I mean, there is no great cosmic drama, some great cosmic plan that we have a role to play in it. And we just need to discover what our role is and then play it to the best of our ability. This has been the story of all religions and ideologies and so forth, but as a scientist, the best I can say, this is not true. There is no universal drama with a role in it for Homo sapiens.
And here's the follow-up, which I think is being published in the US next week.
Yeah, next week.
Homo Deus. Now this is the history of the next 100 years.
I mean, there is nothing that, I don't know, Joseph Goebbels didn't know about all this idea of fake news and post-truth. He famously said that if you repeat a lie often enough, people will think it's the truth, and the bigger the lie, the better. Because people won't even think that, it's something so big can be a lie. And I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible.
But there is
one option that some people talk about is that only a catastrophe can shake humankind and open the path to a real system of global governance. And they say that we can't do it before the catastrophe, but we need to start laying the foundations so that when the disasters strike, we can react quickly. But people will just not have the motivation to do such a thing before the disaster strikes. So the next step is we turn our gaze inwards and we say, okay, gaining control of the world outside us did not really make us satisfied. Let's now try to gain control of the world inside us. This is the really big project of science and technology and industry in the 21st century will be to try and gain control of the world inside us, to learn how to engineer and produce bodies and brains and minds. These are likely to be the main products of the 21st century economy. All of us are flooded by enormous amounts of information and distraction. I mean, this is the most distracted age in history. And to really understand the world all your life, you need some peace and quiet. You need some sanctuary from this enormous flood. And for me, meditation provides this sanctuary. Sometimes people try to meditate to have some unique experience of bliss or of peacefulness or whatever. That's not the point. The point is to understand your normal self, who you really are. What are your mental weaknesses? How you are when you're bored or when you're angry or when you're fearful. If you get to know that, that's much more important than having, I don't know, an hour of some special experience. I think without this practice of meditation, I would not be able to write my books or to try and understand what's happening in the world.
So what do you understand is happening in the world?
We are facing enormous challenges, unprecedented challenges. I mean, when you try to look beyond the constant news cycle of every day, I think three major threats present themselves as major threats to human civilization itself. And these are nuclear war and ecological collapse and technological disruption. I think the most important thing to know about living in the 21st century is that humans are now hackable animals. To hack a human being means to understand that human better than he or she understand themselves.
Read it again.
O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings,
Vain words.
and oppositions of science,
and opposition of what?
and oppositions of science,
And opposition of what?
and oppositions of science, falsely so called.
Falsely so called.
You're okay.
You're going to tell me that the Most High, that this Bible isn't real?
These vaccines
He warned us right here of those who we shouldn't trust in these days.
They're really, really good against
Right here. Trust in the word of God.
Just protecting themselves, but
Opposed to who?
their transmission,
The satanic
to other people and allowing
scientist.
society to get back to normal.
Get your first shot, and when you're due for your second, get your second shot.
A key goal is to stop the transmission.
Look
to get
at
the
that.
immunity levels up.
Now, you can trust in them if you want.
Almost no.
But you've been warned.
Infection going on whatsoever.
When people are vaccinated, they can feel
Okay,
safe
like it
that
says
they're
in
not gonna
Ezekiel,
get
folks.
infected. If you're vaccinated,
When the Most High
you're not
sends
gonna be
what?
hospitalized,
When
you're not gonna be in ICU unit, and you're
when
not
the sword is sent on the land, and the sword is on this land to be destroyed. When one set up a watchman, that watchman is to warn the people. You've been warned. Science is what they used before the flood when it came to the mutations and all that. And it led to the Most High flooding the earth because of it. A mutation. Folks, they've been doing experiments on people and animals for a long time. Here's one example. An RFID example. An RFID example. Science. No one is unscathed when it comes to their science. It tells us in the book of Genesis that they started splicing animals and all that in the book of Jasher. RFID technology on an animal. Used on an animal. Check it out.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, well, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients.
Hold up, to manipulate the mood, the mood of mental patients? So they were actually testing behavior control in humans and all that, not just animals. Look at it again. Look at it again.
I need to create a clinical profile for you, Sarah.
Electronic
Which is
mind
more
control
powerful,
research is not
love
new.
or hate?
A scientific
Now.
milestone. Electronic mind control research is not new.
I like to think love.
Does that look like a
Make
bull
efforts
to you
live
folks?
a low-stress lifestyle and cultivate
So what they're
relationships.
saying without telling you is what they can do to a bull. It can be done to a person.
If you help me, I will take care of you. You're now under my control. Go to 47 West 13th Street. If the scientist doesn't comply, you must kill her. Well then, Sarah. I always get what I want. I have you under my control, don't I?
I've been doing what you asked me to do since day one.
You destroyed my life.
I haven't destroyed it yet, Sarah. There are things I could do. To your mother.
Oh, Commander, she died.
People like you build monsters.
morning, Sarah. How do you feel today?
A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside?
This guy right here, this scientist, is the devil.
In
He's the
recent
devil
years, Delgado has
that the
shown that
Bible
the
speaks
behavior
of.
of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields.
And them monkeys ain't bothering nobody, but they have to test monkeys because that's right. Usually when they go to monkeys, guess what? It's showing a lot of the experiments, people are next.
But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality.
Now this guy right here, folks, is a Satanist. He's a Satanist. He's against God's creation. But let's see another thing. Hold tight.
This is the terrifying story of an apocalyptic experiment of a paradise that turned into hell.
Fair
The
use.
experiment name is Universe 25. Why 25? Because animal behaviorist John Calhoun applied the same experiment 20.
Here's another devil, a Satanist. John Calhoun, who came up with what? The Calhoun 25 experiment on mice. This is where they got the idea to put our people packed like roaches in the projects.
25 times, changing some points, and in the 25th trial, he created the most perfect universe for mice with beautiful buildings and limitless food, and then he introduced 8 mice.
Hey folks, this is where they got the idea of projects from, to put up high rises and have our people in the projects. That's why it's called the projects. It was Calhoun's project that he started with mice. A socialistic society where it made the mice lazy because what? Food and water was no longer a necessity for their survival. It changed the behavior of the mice because out in the wild, the males have to go and hunt and do all these types of things. Not hunt, but go and find the food, for the litter it's a part of. So they did a social construct where they would give these rats food and water and all these things without them working for it. And the mice end up obese, ugly. The female mice, the only thing they did all day was lick themselves, to clean themselves, to be attractive for male mating. They wasn't out doing anything that would support the male. And the male mice would kill each other for that mice who just all day, female mice, where the only attention that she paid attention to was her outward appearance. This is the project, the experiment the scientists made with us, disconnecting us from what? Regular ambition and drive. The Calhoun experiment, where the females would only sit around, look at themselves, and think that that's all they have to do to contribute to the tribe, or to the litters, or to the mice village. And they were able to do it. Welfare and all that took away the natural drive we had. This is why they instituted that. They got that whole thing, that socialistic idea, knowing it would take the drive away from men if they don't have to work, hunt, and do anything for their family to survive.
To the population.
Fair use.
2 years later, the mice had created their own apocalypse. Universe 25 was a giant box designed to be a rodent utopia. The trouble was, this utopia did not have a benevolent creator. John B. Calhoun had designed quite a few mouse environments before he got to the 25th one, and didn't expect to be watching a happy story. Divided into main squares and then subdivided into levels, with ramps going up to apartments.
Subdivided into levels with steps going up to apartments. Folks, they put us in a rat experiment we're still living in.
B-story. Divided into main squares and then subdivided into levels, with ramps going up to apartments. The place looked great, and was always kept stocked with food, but its inhabitants were doomed from the get-go. Universe 25 started out with 8 mice, 4 males and 4 females. By day 560, the mouse population reached 2,200, and then steadily declined back down to unrecoverable extinction. At the peak population, most mice spent every living second in the company of hundreds of other mice. They gathered in the main squares, waiting to be fed and occasionally attacking each other.
So resources started drying up, and eventually, after multiplying, this utopia ended tragically where the mice started killing one another. Doesn't that sound like our neighborhoods right now, folks? So that the politicians can conveniently claim, well, you know what? We must crack down on crime. That's your scientist. That's your scientist. They socially engineered us into what? Into what, folks? Look at it. They made our whole community suicidal on purpose, and they know how the project ends. The project ends with us imploding on each other in the ghettos.
It was okay. It was a beautiful world I grew up in. You know, they talk about segregation, but, you know, like Malcolm said, I didn't want no integrated cup of coffee. We had a beautiful neighborhood. Things started changing in the mid-70s. The system destroyed our whole neighborhood. Like, you know, once we had a lot of business owners out in Third Ward. I mean, Dowling was like a city. You didn't want to go anywhere else other than Dowling. We had movie theaters. We had everything. You had the father and the mother in on in the 60s. In the 70s, you know, it kind of slacked up on the father being at home. So you had a lot of women raising kids or boys by themselves. They really never knew how to be a man, or as we define what a man is. We kind of strayed away from that. And in the 80s, you know, it was just the majority of the women raising kids on their own. Drug-infested neighborhoods that were once drug-free. We had control of it, but now it's everywhere.
What you want, what you need, I'm on the block, I got you. You know, you go to the park, you can't even go to the park no more, have fun with your grandkids. They shooting dice, smoking marijuana right in front of you, and afraid they're gonna holler, this is the way the hood is. Who told you that?
We got you, I swear we do. Well, not only drugs, but just the lack of jobs, you know, stress. You can't get no work, you know, you're gonna result, you gotta feed your family. So that's when the drugs come in, you know, everybody wanna make some money.
Because guess what? One thing I know, two things for sure. If my family's starving, if I can't feed my family, but he over here feeding his, one of us gotta go.
For the sake of self-preservation.
Females carried pregnancies to term, and the ones that did seemed to simply forget about their babies. They'd move half their litter away from danger and forget the rest.
They would leave half of their litter to be devoured and whatever amongst the rest of the mice. They would keep some of their litter and leave the rest to be devoured amongst the community, where there would be less care for their own offspring.
Sometimes they'd drop and abandon a baby while they were carrying it. The few secluded spaces housed a population Calhoun called the beautiful ones, generally guarded by one male, the females. And few males inside the space didn't breed or fight or do anything but eat and groom and sleep. When the
only thing they did was eat, groom, and sleep.
Population started declining, the beautiful ones were spared from violence and death, but had completely lost touch with social behaviors, including having sex or caring for their young. In 1972, With the baby boomers coming of age in an ever more crowded world and reports of riots in the cities, Universe 25 looked like a Malthusian nightmare. It even acquired its own catchy name, the behavioral sink. If starvation didn't kill everyone, people would destroy themselves. The best option was to flee to the country or the suburbs, where people had space and life was peaceful and natural. Today, the experiment remains frightening, but the nature of the fear has changed. A recent study pointed out that Universe 25 was not, if looked at as a whole, too overcrowded. Pens, or apartments at the very end of each hallway had only one entrance and exit, making them easy to guard. This allowed more aggressive territorial males to limit the number of mice in that pen, overcrowding the rest of the world, while isolating the few beautiful ones who lived there from normal society. Instead of a population problem, one could argue that Universe 25 had a fair distribution problem. The fact remains that it had a problem, and one that eventually led to its destruction. If this behavior is shared by both mice and humans, can we escape Universe 25's fate?
Now there's more. There is more, because I have more scriptures too, folks. I'm going to really go into this. I'm going to go into this. The Black Awakening. The experiment on people. If you can traumatize and separate a people in a city where the majority of the offspring are traumatized, you can turn the majority, a large number of confused people who've been socially engineered into Manchurian candidates. Trauma is a necessity for Satan to gain soldiers, to gain people on his side against the righteous. He needs dysfunctional families and separated and separated families, and he needs what? You got it. He needs a house without male protection. He needs orphans. So suppose through the Calhoun Project, they can turn everyone into quasi-orphans. Like what? Like CIA babies. Like those who they experimented with decades ago.
Hello, Captain.
Sergeant Shaw is able to locate self-separate to the left.
Check this out. Check this out. Fair use.
What is the Black Awakening?
It's related to the Red Horse prophecy in Revelation. It's related to 2 Thessalonians 2, when it says about the day of the Lord, the parousia. That day will not occur until the apocalypse of the Antichrist.
Now, this is Russ Deesdar. We're going to tell you what happened to him, but listen to his story based on everything I've just broken down and where we are now prophetically.
And the apostasia, the word rebellion or revolt, that's all really defined in the prophecy of the Red Horse. But here's where the term came from and why I used it purposely. When I started dealing with ritually abused individuals, then we dealt with military-oriented, highly trained, programmed shooters and assassins inside of them.
Ritually abused individuals. This is a satanic, that whole thing is satanic, folks. The whole thing. Ritually abused children. Fair use.
When we began to deal with them, I dealt with someone from Fort Bragg for quite a while and a few others. We're sitting in a lake, Conneaut Lake. They reached over, ripped open my shirt to see if I was wired, if I was wiring and recording them. And they were the most sophisticated satanic warrior type person. They knew 5-6 languages. They knew the ancient Twilight languages. They knew how to conjure. They knew how to use Belteshazzar, Okwam, all these old Pictish languages of the Druids to summon. They are the real Luciferian. They've been through many human sacrificial things. So they sat there to tell me some of those things, what they've been involved with. how they sacrifice a human. I'm listening to all this stuff from them. And then they said to me, you have no idea, Russ, how many of us there are out there. How many satanic, they use the term, chosen ones. You have no idea how many. You have no idea what's coming. We smell Christian blood. We are waiting for our day. And when the call is given, millions of us will be released. And they looked at me and said, you believe in revivals and you believe in Pentecost and the power of God. You believe in all that. We believe in the Black Awakening, a multi-continental release of power to activate the program demonized, where they've weaponized the demonic powers to these super soldiers.
Are they waiting for a specific time to unleash their power?
Yeah, they are, because they have to do it at the moment the Antichrist is, like you read in 2 Thessalonians 2, that it's caught the echo, the restrainer is holding back the apocalypse of the Antichrist, the unveiling.
Now we're going to show you that there will be no one Antichrist, but I'm not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Okay, he was a devout Christian who once was a part of a lot of these experiments before converting. So of course he would have some Christian theology that wasn't exact at the time in which he was converted, but he's testifying what most scientists and others know. These declassified science projects that will be turned loose on society was witnessed by this particular man here.
Failing in his movement. So right now he's held restrained.
Fair use.
Soon as he who restrains is removed, soon as that occurs, we have White Horse, the release of the Antichrist. Instantly, we have the release of the red. It says the whole earth. Arene, peace is taken from the whole earth, and all of a sudden, it doesn't give the details, but all of a sudden, on a global scale, people are released to begin to, and the Greek word is svadzo, slaughter, begin to slaughter people. It's used of animal ritual butchery to begin to slaughter individuals. That's exactly how they defined it to me back in the 90s. And we've heard this again and again and again. So that scenario fits the Masonic version of Chaos Before a New Order. It fits Father Meridon from the Cathedral of the Black Goat, his book, The Devil's Bible. It fits that scenario too. So some of the oldest, darkest occultists, the idea of chaos first, a collapsing of everything so that a new order can rise, that's all by design. And we've been given the heads up in prophecy, but all prophecy has boots on the ground. It'll all eventually happen. So I do believe that millions and millions of these trained, programmed, altered, demonized super soldiers, whether we want to say it or not, they believe they're being raised to help bring the Antichrist in. When I was in England just a few months ago, their top guy that deals with SRA, Wilfred Wong, 25 years. So first time I meet him, I pull him aside and I said, listen, you've been doing this 25 years? Yeah. I said, you know all about programming and demons, all that? Yes. I said, I looked right at him and I said, Wilfred, why are they here in England? Instantly, he said, they are here to collapse our government. They are here to help bring in and usher in the Antichrist and a new order. He didn't know me. He already knew. That's true in Germany when we were in Germany, when we went to Wedelsberg Castle. That's true in Poland when we went there. That's true in Switzerland. That's true in Canada. So when we talk about our research in 38 years worldwide, there may be well over 100 million generations of them. And if even half, or even if 10% were intact, like say the United States, remember the shooter in Vegas? Look what he did. Look what that guy did. Okay, notice what would happen if 10,000 of them, or like Colorado Holmes, or like Jared in Arizona, what if 10,000 of them were released in 1 week? That's their plot plan, and biblical prophecies ahead of that to say here is what is going to happen, and from that a global monetary collapse, and from that's All that chaos is coming. So Revelation 13, a whole new order with the Antichrist can come.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, can be. It's scary for the world. For us,
yeah.
we know no matter what. Yeah.
Emboldened with the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So next question. This is a two-part question. First part: does SRA exist? And if so, how prevalent is it in society today?
Yeah, satanic ritual abuse, and I could say it this way: it not only exists. Satanic ritual abuse is inseparably connected to multiple personality disorder. All of society knows since the late 70s, and even DSM-3, DSM-4, those are the diagnostic manuals for psychology. They all know that all of a sudden, multiplicity started showing up everywhere. They call it DID now. So the secular world, they're registering, millions coming in for diagnosis on that. Now, they don't know how to handle the satanic side. So I'm going to tell you just straight out, after 38 years of dealing with it, not only is SRA real here in the United States, that there are millions of victims by design, that there's now generations of them. We deal with 65 and 70-year-olds. They're the first generation. Then we go to 40-year-olds and 20-year-olds. I got 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds we're dealing with. Because if you don't stop this somewhere, they do it to the next generation. That's by design. That's the way it's supposed to be for them. So, but it occurs in selection. It's generational. It caused and it's simply to say that they bring a lot of trauma to the child to cause split in personality, so that they can demonize and or begin to program. You're going to be a witch.
You see why they want to get into schools and program your children early and traumatize them with adult education? This is how Satan gets the alternate personality to control against the spirit that would normally turn to purity or God or Christ. So they need traumatization of the child so that that child can now become dark and be utilized for what? Darkness. And that's on another level. Now they have engineered, as he said, Manchurian candidates in labs and all that. But this is how the rest of society is being initiated with these particular armies.
Does your mother do it?
No.
Do I do it?
No.
Who does it then?
Papa, Mr. Holding, the school.
Who?
My dad's
Tell me more people. Tell me some more people, please. I'm interested.
Parents, police.
What about the teachers at school? Who's the main one?
Papa, Mr. Holdings, Mrs. Forsyth.
Who's Mrs. Forsyth?
She's the head teacher of our school. As I said, we kill babies, we drink their blood, we eat them.
I'm a police officer of 20 years. I had the opportunity of actually sitting with a mother in this case for 3 hours. I can absolutely tell you, with my experience of interrogation over a 20-year period, as a former detective sergeant, she was speaking 110% truth. I know there's been no investigation, there's been no proper police statement taken from this woman because of the way she's been harassed. I also know that we have child abuse in this country to epidemic levels.
See?
Be a program shooter, all kinds of these things happen.
MK
and then they're raised in that system, and they're raised to keep all of that hidden down and just have kind of little Joey up or little Sally up. And they may not know until they're 15, 16, they may not know what's inside them until later on. But millions have already showed up at psych wards all across America since the late 70s to this day.
You see how they wanted to get all of our young boys into special ed and all that, folks? Special ed, ADHD and all that, so that the practitioners can now help your child? What were they creating in these children?
We look at a child and automatically we're going to protect them, save them, guard them, whatever it takes. They look at a child, they'd eat it alive, they'd destroy it, they'd torture it. You got to remember that's their nature. And so if they could show more of their nature to a defenseless child, they love that. That's why some rituals are called demon revels or satanic revels. The younger the child, here's exactly what dark undergrounders have said to me, the younger the better, and we never kill them right away. We prolong the torture. Why? Because we have to raise the energies, the terror, the fear, and then little by little letting some blood out, because blood is the, and all that torment, it's like, think in terms of rats and garbage. Smelly old garbage draws the rats. A ritual with all that torture, with all that pain, ultimately prescribed by the demons in the first place, it draws them. And once they begin to open the blood gate, that's what they attach to in the context ritual. Then when a child or a human is killed, that's when the demons are released to the practitioners. So it's all about their unsatiable hatred of God. Anything they can do to harm humanity, harm innocence, as an attack on God in a sense. There's no question, in their nature, they don't shed a tear. They don't have any mercy. Harm, and they love that as part of the entrance to come into the side. Here's the other side of it. We've been to Canada, Scotland, Geneva, Switzerland, Germany, Poland. They're all over there. We just got back from Scotland, UK, and we met one of the guys there, one of the leaders in the whole nation on the subject, and same issue. It stems from the original Nazis creating a master race.
Nazi Germany, a state in which children have become a national obsession. Hitler has proclaimed it must be considered reprehensible to withhold healthy children from the nation. If the fertility of the healthiest bearers of the nationality is consciously and systematically promoted, the result will be a race which has eliminated the germs of our present physical and hence spiritual decay. By 1934, a year after the Nazi seizure of power in Germany, Himmler has firmly established the entry requirements for membership of his SS. The SS Race and Resettlement Bureau investigates the racial ancestry of every applicant. To advise him in his search for the religion of the ancient Teutonic tribes, Himmler has recruited into the SS a renowned Germanic occultist, a man whose claim is to be the last in a long line of Aryan priest kings.
3 months ago, I was congressing. Hitler himself talks of suicide. Then Hitler reportedly meets famed astrologer Erich Jan Hanussen. Hanussen makes an unlikely prediction. In 30 days, a turning point, perhaps even power.
Well, this is impossible. In December of 1932, Hitler had no hope of gaining this type of power.
Hanussen suggests there is a tool to help Hitler realize his goal, a good luck charm.
Hanussen tells Hitler that he must go back to the town where he was born and find a mandrake root.
A mandrake is a man-shaped root said by European occultists to possess powerful medicinal properties. According to author Peter Levenda, Hitler asked Hanussen to find the root. Hanussen travels to Hitler's hometown and digs up a mandrake from a butcher's backyard. On New Year's Day, 1933, Hanussen presents the charm to Hitler. According to Professor Nicholas Goodrich Clark, this is Hitler's mandrake.
That Hitler had even received such an object and was prepared to accept it suggests some remarkable susceptibility to superstition or occult power at this time.
This Vienna newspaper shows Hitler with the mandrake. From a wire around its neck hung a capsule.
And in this capsule were some verses that Hanussen had allegedly written describing a league or bond between himself, the mandrake, and Hitler. These verses described that Hitler would have unlimited power and good fortune so long as he held true to this bond or league between himself and Hanussen and the mandrake.
Hitler's luck changes.
Within 30 days, because of a series of political negotiations that are taking place behind the scene, suddenly Hitler finds himself Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. Hanussen's prediction, an impossibly optimistic prediction, comes true to the day.
Whether Hanussen read the future or had an inside tip, no one can say. Then, on February 26th, in a seance led by Hanussen,
2001, an incredible discovery is made in the depths of a Bavarian lake.
Everybody who is in contact with this cold run, he's like mesmerized, you know. You can feel its power.
It would mark the beginning of an unbelievable tale of intrigue and shady deals.
Somebody said, we found the Holy Grail and tried to make billions. It must be a big story.
Could the cauldron unlock one of the greatest mysteries of the Nazis?
This thing has some kind of magic. Not whether white or black, one can't really be sure.
And reveal a secret obsession with the occult.
The whole idea is surrounded by fantasy and mythology.
To find out, we journey inside a dark fortress at the heart of the Nazi regime.
We have not begun to get to the bottom of what really went on there.
The Nazi Temple of Doom.
astrologers, mystics, and occultists who helped Hitler on his rise to power.
Hamburg, Germany, December 1938. 4 years into Adolf Hitler's reign as Führer, he is beginning to establish his total dictatorship by taking direct control of the German military. But on the brink of World War II, Hitler is also involved in much stranger endeavors that are hidden to the public. He is committing every remaining resource to searching for ancient relics that he believes could hold incredible powers. On December 17th, the German freighter MS Schwabenland sets out on one of these top-secret missions. Its 33-member team is rumored to include scientists, military experts, construction crews, and key members of the Thule Society, an elite group associated with the Nazis that focused on mysticism and the occult. 32 days later, they arrive at their destination, Antarctica.
The Nazis themselves were fascinated by ancient civilizations and legends of vanished super races. They were searching for this lost Arctic home that they thought that the Aryans had come from. They were looking all over the world, and that included Antarctica. The Thule Society actually believed that there were mystics or channels who were able to communicate with these beings who claimed to be either extraterrestrial in origin or claimed to belong to this civilization that lived in Earth's interior. They gave a lot of information about the building of advanced aerospace vehicles, flying saucers, and I think this is where Hitler's Nazi Party got a lot of its information about Antarctica. That in Antarctica there is this ancient civilization or bases where they could find a lot of these advanced technologies.
During their time in Antarctica, the Nazis were believed to have mapped huge swaths of the icy landscape by air. Ancient astronaut theorists believe they also established an elaborate underground headquarters known as Base 211.
Hitler and the Nazis were particularly interested in Antarctica. I think they really believed that there were things going on deep under the ice. And there have always been rumors that the Nazis, with their submarines, have underwater caverns, small cities, that they escaped there after World War II.
When the Germans got to Antarctica, what they found were massive cities that were highly technological. And these buildings were not just on the surface, they went deep down underground. So they began relocating a massive amount of equipment and personnel to Antarctica, repressurizing these ancient facilities and reoccupying them.
In 1946, 1 year after the end of World War II, the US government launched its own large-scale mission to Antarctica. Operation High Jump deployed 4,700 troops, 13 ships, an aircraft carrier, and a number of seaplanes to Antarctica. Although the government denied it at the time, it would later become known that one of the operation's primary objectives was, quote, extending the United States sovereignty over the largest practicable area of the Antarctic continent.
Wherever the Nazis went in the early 50s, rat lines all around the planet, wherever you see them going to escape, then you see the rise of SRA. So we need to rename this. SRA, that's the tools to hammer this in and to augment these people and to bring the demonization and to create them. But really it is part of the master race development that started back in the late 30s. And Himmler's goal was to create 200 million of them. That was his stated goal.
I need y'all to check that out, folks. All of this all at once. Creating a traumatized society, knowing that these people without family are bringing forth children that by default of their environment develops multiple personality disorder. Demon possession is what they've cultivated in the society that they knew would one day implode on itself.
What is it?
The children! They murdered their own parents!
Who's there?
I think we got a problem.
I think you may be right.
Something out there. It's evil. It's gotten a hold of our children. Happy purge, you
You better find someplace else to go.
I got a wicked sweet tooth tonight. And I want my candy bar. And I'm gonna take it. You don't got the balls to stop me.
I have the balls. Now go.
I already took care of my mom and dad tonight. You're next.
The soldiers. The soldiers now.
Don't worry. Don't let they weapons throw your focus off. Rise before midnight.
No weapon formed against us will prosper. Look how long we've been at the bottom. They tried to keep us from this knowledge. Joke's on you, we got it. No weapon formed will prosper. Long as you trust in the Father, He got you. We gon' make it out.
We not stopping unless the Father say. All of this mercy, how could we not obey? They learn how to treat you based on what you tolerate. So if it ain't about truth, we can't conversate. A chosen generation, you not common, Jake. Why settle for less? You could be somebody great. Don't stress about the time it takes. Trust the process, this is not a race. As of late, my conversation been about preparation for the time to come. The world's forever changing, we ain't gotta evolve. The prophets knew we pick up where they leave off. Put on that white robe, pick up that ephod. Tears fell, bloodshed, sacrifices were made for righteousness' sake. Many had to die for the faith. Years later, we back on that old path, so it's not in vain. Before it's bombs away, it's something I gotta say.
No weapon formed against us will prosper. Look how long we've been at the bottom. They tried to keep us from this knowledge. Joke's on you, we got it. No weapon formed will prosper. Long as you trust in the Father, He got you. We gon' make it out.
Hey, don't let they weapons throw your focus off. They drain me, I did it fast, now I'm overcharged. When we fellowship, I gotta hear your testimony. Cause you made it through situations I know it's hard. And it ain't no facade, you knew that storm would hit you. But you dodged them raindrops, I know He with you. You got stripes in the spirit now, you more official. Make sure you not the weapon that's formed against you. Don't stress in tribulation, glory in it. Did you just come out the furnace cause you glowing different? All the added trauma just gave you a badge of honor. If the path to heaven ain't rough, are you really on it? You could've took that broad way, you couldn't see, but you still walk, that's what I call faith. It's a crown waiting for you, so it's not in vain. Before it's bombs away, it's something I gotta say.
The children of Israel fought their enemy before they showed up. That's why the Bible says that the inhabitants was always afraid of the children of Israel coming, because they knew they had a God that would go before them and destroy their demon gods in the atmosphere, so the children of Israel could walk in literally, and most of the time they fought without even having to fight. It was when they got in disobedience they had to fight physically, they got killed. This is what it means when the Bible says the battle is not yours, said the Lord. You just get in a posture where you release this sound and I will destroy your enemy, and all you have to do is walk in.
No weapon formed against us will prosper. Look how long we've been at the bottom. They tried to keep us from this knowledge. Joke's on you, we got it. No weapon formed will prosper. Long as you trust in the Father, He got you. We gon' make it out.